It is Thursday, November 11th. Happy Veterans Day here in the U.S. I'm Scarlett Fu. Madison Mills is off. We've got those stories and more coming up on this special COP26 edition of Quick Take the Lead. COP26 is a global gathering full of global commitments, but really change needs to happen at the local level. Microcosm solutions can ripple to create change. One company, the Future of Cities, is working to leverage city policies and economies to focus on climate challenges. I sat down with its CEO, Tony Cho, for his takeaways from Glasgow that can impact neighborhoods as well as communities.
As I returned from Glasgow, I returned with a little bit of hope. It was definitely a pivotal moment. Global leaders convened to talk about fighting climate change and really coming up with solutions. So we had, corporate leaders, public sector leaders, private sector leaders, and then you had all the activists on the ground, the Greta Thunbergs and the artists and the indigenous, really demanding climate justice. So it was very powerful and palpable and also hopeful at the same time.
What did you learn specifically that you can take back to how you think about planning for the future of cities, particularly in Florida?
So I was there with a delegation from Florida. The World Harmony Organization was part of our event that we did, as well as Ideas for Us, that's prototyping solutions all around Florida for sustainability and resilience. What I learned is that there's a global team of leaders around the world that are prototyping solutions, and there's a lot more people working on the solutions than it feels like sometimes here in Florida. And so I think connecting with those leaders and those change makers and those innovators was very exciting for me, because I want to bring all of those solutions back to Florida.
And I believe you attended the summit with the mayor of Saint Petersburg, which is a coastal city on the west coast of Florida, and the mayor of Orlando, which is a landlocked central Florida city. We know that in general, cities in Florida are vulnerable to climate change. Do you think that as a result, these cities and their political leaders are more open to innovative planning solutions than they otherwise would be?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. When I returned at the Miami International Airport, I saw Mayor Francis Suarez, city of Miami, who had just come back from the conference. He was inspired and reinvigorated to bring more climate solutions and more awareness around sea level rise and climate change to South Florida, to Florida in general. He's the incoming president of the Congress of Mayors, and so his voice will be important in this climate discussion. So I think Florida is starting to emerge in the conversation, and it's great that many mayors were there present, at this conference, because they're getting to hear from, global experts, climate scientists, policymakers, innovators, technologists in the space of climate change. And so I think it's opening everybody's eyes, and the conversation is becoming more forefront, front and center, and really looking at it from a pragmatic, business-minded solution of how do we capture as much carbon as quickly as possible to avoid our 1.5 degree Celsius increase. That would basically set off a set of events that would create a lot of havoc for our current modern society.
What do you think is the quickest fix that cities can make to reduce their carbon footprint? Is it, to turn more streets into pedestrian-only zones, to add more carpool lanes, congestion pricing? I mean, these are all things that have kind of come up in different cities. What's the easiest way of getting there?
Well, I think we need to disrupt the materials that we're using and the energy that it's taking to operate our built environment. The built environment accounts for 50% of CO2 emissions. So unless we change the way that we're building and operating our communities and our buildings, we're not going to make a dent in the climate fight. And so I think we really need to invest in 3D printing and prefab housing and hempcrete, magnesium concrete, carbon capturing materials that are going to offset our carbon footprint as quickly as possible. And so the built environment is slated to double or triple in size over the next 30 years. So we need to look at that as an opportunity to innovate and focus on carbon solutions and circular economy solutions in the way that we operate and the way that we consume.
So I came across a term on your website. It's holistic urban planning. It sounds really great. It sounds like it could be something that helps us in the future. But what does it mean in practice? And how much more money or less money or more time or less time does it cost us?
Okay, so, we're setting out to prove the thesis that, social, environmental, impactful projects can actually deliver outsized economic returns, because we believe this is the only way forward. And we believe there's going to be severe penalties to building projects that are going to be emitting CO2s. And so we have to start, embarking on this, but it will require public-private partnership and cross-sector collaboration at scale. This is a global problem. This is not an individual. We're not competing against each other anymore. We're competing against time. So we need to collaborate and work together, and we need to invest in R&D, and we also need to be willing to experiment. So people who are doing socially and environmentally progressive projects need to be incentivized to do so.
Can you give me an example of one that works well?
So, for example, brownfield, remediations. There are government funding that's available at the federal level, at the local level, at the state level, social innovation projects for diversity and equity. Different foundations have programs. So if you combine, that's what holistic planning is, and urban planning. That's what regenerative placemaking, which is our framework that we're open sourcing, that we're sharing with the world as a framework for doing sustainable development. And it's really not prescriptive. It's working with each local jurisdiction, local community, local culture, and local city, prototyping solutions that may work all over the world, but adapting them to the local community so they can have their best outcome. Every solution doesn't work everywhere. And so a lot of these developments are place-based and place-specific.
Yeah. Using best practices, but implementing them on a case-by-case basis. Tony, really appreciate your joining us. Tony Cho is founder and CEO of the Future of Cities.
Thank you so much, Scarlett. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Tony, thank you.